Hello everyone. I welcome you to the CEC lecture series. I am Nupur Chawla, teaching English literature at Maitri College, Delhi University. And today's lecture is a kind of a summing up, one can say, of this series in which we have been discussing about English drama. So in that series where different teachers discussed with you different aspects of English drama, I had focused on the 20th century post-war drama, right? So this lecture is going to be a summing up of 20th century post-war drama. Now, you see, what is the purpose? The idea is that, in every lecture we had looked at a text of a playwright who wrote, around this time. And we discussed the text concerns, we looked at its stylistic elements, etc. And here now we are going to put together all of that. Right, so it's kind of one can say a conceptual summing up so that we get an idea of so we basically have a kind of a framework in which we put the drama belonging to 20th century post-war, right? So I will first begin with, very quickly doing a recap of the historical context, because you see, as students of literature, we have understood that literary narratives are very much, impacted by the development in history, right? Be it historical events, be it historical trends, or for that matter, value systems, etc. Whatever are the dominant tendencies in history at a particular point of time, they tend to, seep into literature. And of course, the other way around also happens, where literature interferes or not interferes, but intervenes in the state of affairs of history, right? So it's important for us, whenever we look at any phenomenon, any text, it's good to understand that what are the conditions that gave rise to, a particular literary phenomenon or a particular given text. So talking of history in the context of 20th century post-war drama, two events had proven quite important in the sense that they had a far-reaching impact on people's lives and of course on literary production as well. So one such event that impacted English history in the 20th century was industrialization, and the second were the world wars, right? Now, when I talk about industrialization, of course, you see, it means that there is a shift in the mode of production, right? But if we trace back this event to its origin, one can say that the Industrial Revolution per se, which is the process of change from an agrarian or a agricultural and a handicraft economy to the one dominated by industry and machine manufacturing. That is what is that is what is Industrial Revolution, right? That when there is so Industrial Revolution spelled this change from an agricultural oriented economy to the one which was dominated by industries and machine manufacturing, right? Now, this term Industrial Revolution was first popularized by the English economic historian Arnold Toynbee, and he used this term Industrial Revolution to describe Britain's economic development from 1760 to 1840. So what do we notice? That the advent of industrialization happened in the 18th century, in the late 18th century. 19th century it reached its head, and 20th century is when one can say that Europe, including England, was industrialized, and it had started to witness the impact of this shift from the agriculture to production from machines. So one can say that what was this impact? So of course it can take an entire lecture to discuss the impact of mechanization and industrialization, but to be very quick, to tell you very quick, we noticed that the impact of industrialization resulted in plays, lamenting the alienation of humans in an increasingly mechanized world. So this is one of the themes that we see, which is widely explored by playwrights in the post-industrial world. In fact, in not post-industrial, but in the industrialized world. That is, with the coming of the machines, people felt alienated. Why alienated? Alienated means that they felt, cut off, disconnected. But disconnected from what? Foremost is that they were disconnected from their own labor, right? So once machines came in, the human intervention became limited, and each individual, working, let's say, in a factory, was just doing one designated task. If a product was being made, then a individual was working on one part of it. Now, what that end product looked like, they didn't know, right? So they were just doing that small role. They were playing that small role which was given to them. So that led to alienation, and of course, with the coming of the machinery, there was also a change in the value system as well, right? The way people interacted, the way people coalesced, the way they spent time, etc. All of that also underwent a change, right? So with machinery, of course, a certain flavor of mechanization also came, or one can say a mechanical outlook to life also came in. So this has been one of the critiques of industrialization that we also notice in the plays in the post-war period. The second important historical event, which also is, had a decisive impact, was the two wars. The First World War, which was from 1914 to 1918, and the Second World War, which was 1935 to 1949. And this as well led to a sense of existentialism and alienation. So when I say post-war, I essentially mean post-Second World War, right, which ended in 1949. So you see, because these wars were so destructive, because there was such irrationality associated with violence, people did not, in fact, like the common people, they were not even aware that the enemy that they are fighting, why is that particular entity or a country their enemy itself? So there was a complete chaos in that sense, and that, of course, led to a sense of disconnect, a sense of disillusionment, a sense of lack of purpose, and of course the value systems also shook, right? So these two events were quite seminal that formulated or impacted the psyche of people in the second half of the 20th century. Now, just as an aside, you will see on your screen these two cartoons, right? They are depictions of these two phenomena. If you look at the first image, which has this man with a bulging belly, and he's standing on these different bags that have titles of different things connected with war, and if you notice that that man stands for business, right? So which shows what? That in a mechanized world, the moment production was mechanized, the idea of profit making came in, and profit, money, business became one of the foremost priorities, and sometimes even humanity took a back seat. So this was very interesting illustration of the impact of industrialization of the society and of countries. The other image that you see is another a caricature or a cartoon, which is a depiction of the effect of the world wars. Now, of course, this is somewhat morbid, right? Now, cartoons, I'm sure, I know that they're supposed to have an element of fun, but here, what do we see? We have a soldier who says, I am back, right? Back from where? The wars. And look how the soldier is depicted. He's completely down and out, almost looking like a beast, one can also say, right? That he scarcely looks human. So one can say that this image then, talks about the dehumanization that war, brought about amongst people. Yes, so these two are the historical events which then become important for us to understand what was going on in the 20th century when drama was, when a certain kind of drama was being written. Now, the next thing that we discuss is the literary context. From the history, we move to the literary context. Now, in English history, you see every era has been associated with a distinct literary trend. So, the 18th century is most commonly referred to as the age of satire. The 19th century is the age of the novel, because that's the time when the novel as a form came into being. And 20th century is called as the age when drama makes a comeback and it is redefined to a certain extent. Now, comeback from where? During Renaissance and the 18th century to an extent, you see, till that time, a drama was, kind of on scene. But with the coming of the novel in the 19th century, there was a slight gap. Right, so after that 1 century, then drama came back on the literary landscape. Now, the next thing that one needs to see is that the 20th century drama, which then came back, was there a trend in the kind of plays that were being written? Broadly, one can say that there were 2 kinds of plays that were being staged. The musical comedies, which were also called the frocks and frills, and serious drama, right? Now, this was actually in line with the European trend. Okay. Now, you see in the chapter 20th century drama in the book Norton Anthology of English Literature, Stephen Greenblatt makes an observation. It's important for us to look at this. He says, in Britain, the impact of these continental innovations was delayed by a conservative theatre. Was delayed by a conservative theatre establishment until the late 1950s and 1960s, when they converged with the countercultural revolution to transform the nature of English language theatre. So here he says that the innovations in the British landscape, right, all that we've discussed about so far, the impact of these continental innovations was actually delayed by a conservative theatre establishment, right? So over here, innovations can also refer to the innovations in drama, right? So they were somewhat, delayed or limited by the conventional theatre. Which was, on scene. But then it was in the 1950s and 1960s, as Greenblatt says, when, all the trends converged with the countercultural revolution to transform the nature of English language theatre. So in the 50s and the 60s, then we see that there was a kind of a resurgence in drama of a different kind. And what was that? It participated in raising a concern or raising a voice against certain issues, against certain aspects of reality. Yes. So from here we move to looking at that what were the 3 kinds of plays that were written in the 20th century. So the first one or the first kind were the musical comedies, right? The second were the political plays, and the third was the theatre of the absurd, right? Now, so we have seen that while there was invention in drama as it came in 20th century, there was it started to coincide with the countercultural revolution. We also need to see that once this broad trend is witnessed, from there we kind of move to narrow down our approach a bit and see that what were the kinds of plays which were being written. We just mentioned 3 types. First, the musical comedies. Second, the political plays. And third, the theatre of the absurd. The musical comedies, of course, this kind of a drama was not very serious. it was meant for entertainment. These were, of course, comedies. Now, comedy is not in the sense of something that just makes you laugh, but also, something which, like it is that genre which makes you rethink about certain concepts. But still more importantly, comedies would at the center involve a celebration, right? A celebration of life, a celebration of any aspect of human journey, etc. So all that would comprise comedies, right? So any kind of a celebration, you would not see any dark element. And of course, musical itself added to the idea of the light-hearted appeal of such plays. Yes. Now, of course, in literature, not much has been talked about these musical comedies of the 20th century, but instead, the focus has been on the other two kinds of plays that were important at this time. The first one is the political plays, and then the theatre of the absurd. Now, when we talk about the political plays, what exactly are they? These are plays which are often associated with the theatre of ideas, right? So, which means what? Now, what do we mean by theatre of ideas? Or what do we mean by political, for that matter? What makes a play political? Or what makes us, term it as political? Political or politics is nothing but, taking a stand. So while in our day-to-day understanding, for us politics is that something which involves different parties, etc., and that kind of a diplomacy, bureaucracy. But at a conceptual level, if we see the word political or politics being used in literature per se, the word politics or political would mean something that takes a stand. You might wonder, stand on what? Stand on any issue which is being depicted. So you exactly know that what does the writer think about the given topic or given theme which is in discussion, or the given theme which he has taken up for representation. Which side of the line is the author, right? So that is articulated in political plays, and that's why the other reason or that we refer to these plays as is theatre of ideas. Now, ideas how? Because you see, these this kind of a drama, it served to of course, through a dramatization, the aim was to bring out certain perspectives. The aim was to concretize some kind of an understanding of things. So the purpose was not just that people come and watch something, they have a good time, and then they go back. But the purpose was to make people think. And when something makes you think, then of course, there is also some kind of an idea which is being introduced to you. Yes, so that's why we say that the political plays, were nothing but a theatre of ideas. Yes. Now the third thing before we go on to the third aspect, one more thing which we need to keep in mind over here is that, you see, whenever we talk about political plays, a lot of times we slip into this kind of I would say assumption that any play which is political, it is just political. We fail to appreciate the fact that it is as much a work of art as well. It does have its own unique aesthetic as well. It is also at the same time meant to be enjoyed, and because after all, any piece of creative writing is supposed to appeal to one's imagination, and anything which appeals to one's imagination is of course enjoyable, right? But along with that appeal, when a perspective is worked out, that is what makes the plays political, right? So let's not have this kind of a binary category in our head, political and apolitical, or political and serious and non-serious, etc. But we really need to understand that those plays which are political are also at the same time, they have their own aesthetic value too. Yes? Okay. So from there we move to the third kind of drama that was popular in post-war or second half of the 20th century, that was theatre of the absurd. Now that is something which I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar with, because that's the first thing which comes to mind, or the first phenomenon that comes to mind the moment we think of this kind of timeline, which is post 60s. So theatre of the absurd was primarily associated with the modernist plays, and as the word itself suggests, the absurd. Absurd means something which is which does not fall in line with the normative understanding, which does not fall in line with our rational set of mind, but instead it has something extra, right? Now of course we will talk about absurdities still at length as we come to those examples, but you see, the theatre of the absurd actually was an upshot of, it was influenced by this idea during and particularly after the wars, of the absurdity of life and existence itself, right? That people started to question, what is the purpose of being alive? Why is it that they are breathing, right? What is it that they should be doing as humans that are alive at this point of time? So these kind of existential questions started to appear in people's minds, and a lot of times, so this led to existentialism, and existentialism is a lot of times discussed in close connection with the theatre of the absurd. But to discuss it still more in a pointed manner, the word absurd, why did plays explore the theme of absurdity? The most obvious answer is that after the wars, or because of the wars, one was thinking about the sheer absurdity of life, sheer absurdity of violence, and how overnight things completely turn around. So this kind of impact of war made people think of absurdity as an important element, and of course then that also came in discussion of the literary critics, playwrights, novelists, etc. Right? So very quickly then we will tie together the points that we have discussed so far. The first thing, we began this lecture by discussing the historical context, in particular by discussing two important historical events which impacted Europe and Britain in particular in the 20th century, that is industrialization, which of course started in the 18th century but came to a head in the 20th, and of course the two world wars. From there we went on to discuss the literary context, so which means that what were the kind of plays that were being written, what was the position of the genre of drama itself, right, or this form of expression itself, and thirdly, what were the categories of plays that were being written around this time, right? So with this we have kind of set the ground of historical and literary context. In the next lecture we are going to discuss further some themes, and of course also certain plays that were part of this literary trend. Thank you.